Hello, okay, good evening. Welcome to H3, the show about health, hope, and happiness. My name's Alan Friesen, also known as the Acapellist, or also Samansky. I have a Blackfoot name, Samansky now. And with me is Scott. How you doing, brother Scott?
I'm doing great. What does Samansky mean?
Okay, well, let me tell you the whole deal here. You remember last week I went for to the Sundance ceremony and
Yeah.
had blessing and had my face painted, right? And when I was sitting down to get that done, the elder, Roger, said, "Do you have a Blackfoot name?" And I said, "Well, this Blackfoot man called me Samansky a couple of years ago. He was calling me Samansky." And so
Mhm.
then Roger said, "Okay, that's your Blackfoot name." So then as he's doing the blessing, he's saying, "Oh, Samansky, Samansky's going to have this great year. Samansky's going to have this amazing health and abundance. Samansky's," anyway, so it's all about Samansky. So I I apparently have a Blackfoot name and it's Samansky is what it is. So
Do we know what that means?
it's supposed to be a singer, apparently. I couldn't find
Oh,
it anywhere, but the person who initially started calling me or gave it to me, his name is Ita May Pui, and he told me it meant singer in Blackfoot. So
interesting.
yes, yes. So there you go. And
Cool.
so anyways, that's I've added Samansky on as well, since I have a blessing for a year from Samansky from the elder going forward in the name of Samansky. I got to keep that happening. So yeah,
That's great. Yeah, no doubt. Lots of singing in store for you.
exactly. Yes. And what is our topic for tonight, Mr. Sweeman?
Well, tonight's an interesting one. Actually, when I popped on, a news article popped up, and I think maybe we'll talk about it next week.
Okay.
And it's called POTS, and I can't say what that stands for because it's very long. But apparently, the number of cases in the world since COVID have greatly increased. And it's a condition that occurs when people get a virus like COVID. Some people are lumping in with the long COVID symptoms, but doctors say it's not unique to COVID. It can occur after someone's been sick with other types of viruses, and it's very debilitating. And it's when you move, your heart rate suddenly changes.
Hmm.
And they traditionally they prescribe uh, exercise for it. But this article was about a British woman, I think on the national rowing team, and her condition actually deteriorated severely and went from moderate to severe because of the exercise regime that she was on. So they're rethinking that situation. So I think that's what we're going to talk about next week, just to clue everyone in on that. So if you see a news article on POTS, POTS, have a look at it. Be ready for next week. What we're
Okay.
going to talk about this week is uncluttering. Um,
Uncluttering. All right. I like the sound of that.
uncluttering.
Hmm.
Yeah, I thought you might. And it's very interesting. The art of letting go. Many of us have uh, too much clutter, too many things, an overabundance of things. Would you say that's true?
Definitely too much stuff. Yeah. No, I agree entirely. Yeah. You got.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then and it becomes where your possessions kind of possess you, right? You have to do so much just to maintain, keep up, ensure, take care of possessions, kind of a thing, that they're kind of controlling you as opposed to them being your asset. You become their kind of servant, kind of a thing, right?
Well, as you know, we're doing some changing around and things on property, and every chance they get, I get an advertisement or an inducement for property insurance, which
Mm,
of course we have, and then it's been sort of stepping up, and you know, and there's sort of been a whole fear tactic, exactly like you said. Oh, now that you have more stuff, you need more insurance, and basically saying, oh, you should not be able to sleep at night because now you have stuff that could burn down or be stolen. It's like
yeah,
causes a lot of stress.
it
And
does.
so, yeah, go ahead.
No, that it does. It does. So I'm looking forward to what have you learned about some great decluttering type tips or ideas?
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's a psychology of clutter, And a lot of research has been put into it, and sort of the uptake on that is the development of a minimalist movement. It sort of comes and goes as a fashion trend. In the early 2020s, there was a minimalist movement, depending on where you are. If you think back to sort of the pre-trend and sitcoms like the Friends show, right? Their apartment was really cluttered. It had lots of memorabilia and antiques, and just like it was always sort of a funny joke that all of these poor semi-employed young people who was always struggling for money had lots of things in that apartment that were like $10,000 or $20,000 an item, but and most of us, of course, don't have that kind of stuff laying around our house. But yeah, they found that the mental health benefits of decluttering are improved focus, better sleep, a greater sense of control, a better sense of well-being overall, and how that tidy environment can really lead to a healthier life, not just psychologically but also physically, because the impact of a cluttered lifestyle is not healthy for us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One of the things that's always up when they talk about this is really, what does it mean to be cluttered? And I think that that's pretty relative. Some people find what other people find to be a really big mess and incredibly cluttered. Other people find really, really, oh, everything's just where I want it to be. Where are you on that line, huh?
Well, I feel I have too much clutter sometimes, and a lot of where is about how many windows I have open. And so and now I learned, actually, you remember that Jeanette woman that we've been chatting with? She showed me this thing about where you can group your tabs. So now I have as many tabs open as before, but now I have them grouped. And then when you click on, like, let's say I have one that's called learning, it'll expand to like 20 open tabs, right? But when I close it, then it's just one tab, right? And so then when I go back and okay, I want to go to that next podcast episode, hit the learning, opens up, watch the thing, then close it down again, kind of thing, or not, or minimize it again. And that's been a great tool to kind of help my desktop be not so dirty and so cluttered up, kind of a thing, right? So
right, and that's one of the big take homes on tonight's talk. And there's all different kinds of clutter, and it can be mental clutter, it can be digital clutter, it can be physical clutter, it can be work environment clutter, it can be relationship clutter, and we don't really have the ability to multitask.
no.
Human beings, we think we do. Oh, I can do 3 things at once. Well, we can't actually. We can focus on one, and then the other 2 sort of are on the periphery of our consciousness, if at all. And often we think that it's a sign of skill or prowess, of oh, I've got all these projects open, I've got 4 books on the go. That was one of the articles I read. It was talking about how you can have information clutter. Like, instead of reading one book, you've got 5 or 6, and you pick one up and you read a bit, and then tomorrow you pick up a different one. And some people say, oh, I'm getting so much done. But for an example, a study at Princeton University Neuroscience Institute showed that type of clutter increases stress and reduces productivity. And in their study, when they asked people, often the people weren't aware that their body was showing signs of stress because of that
Mm-hmm.
self-imposed disorganization or clutter.
Yeah, I know that I am one of the worst offenders for thinking that I can multitask as well, right? And I don't think there's a human who can actually do it. I think that we all, trick ourselves into, oh yeah, I can kind of listen to that and do this while at the same time, or that kind of a thing. So, and whereas if I can just like slow the hell down and just say, I'm going to stay focused with this activity that I'm in right now until this activity is done, right?
Yeah.
I know I kind of relate it to, as you know, I like to sing songs. And if I
Mhm.
start thinking of the next song while I'm singing this song, I don't do this song any justice, right? I don't, I'm missing some of the lyrics, or I miss a verse, that kind of a thing. Whereas if I stay focused on the song that I'm singing until the last note, and then take a breath, and then choose another song and go on. So it's not like, oh, I'm, in my head going to the next song, or oh gee, do I remember that one, or that kind of a thing, right? So I
Great example. Yeah.
thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really, I think that's, I'm trying my best to be in the present moment, and to not be lured in by the belief that we can multitask, which we can't.
Well, and that's really interesting too, because as we talked about, it extends into absolutely everything we do. And psychologists have basically proven that human beings can have about 5.5 close relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a partner or a spouse, it counts as two.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Where you have not just the commitments of friendship, but then you have, responsibilities in terms of managing finances, and all of those things that official couples do.
Right.
And so, they point to things like Facebook and likes and friends, and it's really creating a tremendous amount of noise, relationship noise, and people are having trouble focusing on the two or three close relationships that we need to be healthy, and that as organisms we can actually maintain.
Yes.
If you're trying to maintain more relationships, and I'm talking about close relationships, the study, acquaintances, which is a word we don't really use anymore. You can have lots of acquaintances, and they can be people that you are very happy to be with, and you like to check up on and hear how they're doing, but they don't have the maintenance of an I don't want to use intimate because people think of sex immediately now when you say intimate, but that close relationship of really good friends, or somebody that a relationship that you want and need to maintain.
Yeah, and it takes time, right? You have to have
Absolutely.
time to have those conversations. You have to have time to be able to listen. You have to be able to time to, put something that maybe in your world was the next on your to-do list, to say, you know what, Scott really needs to talk about this right now. I'm gonna park that and leave that alone so we can have this conversation. Yeah, that's
Well,
beautiful.
and yeah, another great example, because in today's society, we we've been trained, especially younger people, that friends involve click, move on.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
oh, I like 4 of your posts last week. We're
yeah,
friends, right?
yeah,
That's all our relationship needs. And studies are showing, and people are realizing that that's clutter. That puts you in a situation where you can't focus and have those genuine experiences. And that's where this minimalist lifestyle, the minimalist trend, decluttering from your mind, relationships, stuff on your desk, it is really becoming important.
yeah. No, that's great. And then on the same decluttered path, then what if you have 1,500 Facebook friends, or whatever number that you have?
Mhm.
Then what should you be doing about that? Because you're obviously not communicating with them all. You're not connecting
Yeah.
with them all. You don't really know anything about them, and you don't have the time or energy to know anything. To focus on that many, you just can't do it, right? So what should you be doing in that scenario? Just deleting a
Well,
bunch of friends, or getting off
yeah.
Facebook?
The truth is that Facebook and other social media were created to provide a product, and we are the product, right?
We're the product.
And we're the product. So, when we go on Facebook, it's become, a measure of your social worth. It's become a measure of your company's viability. And a lot of that, we've been trained by the companies so that they can sell us to advertisers, sell our information. They can sell our names. They can advertise to us directly. And advertisers have more access to personal information than they ever have in the history of humankind.
Mhm.
And social media is the number one supplier. Online shopping is another big one. And so we have to really And it comes down to a great word. You've used it a lot, over the last year or so, and that's intention. And we have to ask ourselves, what is our intention? And I found for Facebook, for me, it's basically just like I used to have a little black book that had all my friends, acquaintances, phone numbers in them, their name, maybe their birthday if we were, close. And I carried that everywhere so I could contact somebody. Oh, I went to school with this guy. How did I get a hold of him? And so a lot of people, that's what Facebook is. If they're not just counting likes and getting some sort of affirmation out of that, which is, the emperor's new clothes in a lot of way, you have to decide what you're using any type of object for. And that's one of the keys to decluttering, is what is my intent in spending time with this? What is my intent in giving space on my desktop to this? What is my intent in, my activity? Michelle, as you know, part of our team, a good friend, it's her birthday today. Happy birthday, Michelle. She was asking about today's show, and I was telling her about it. And she said, oh, yeah, I heard this really great thing when we were in Japan. And it was by an expert in decluttering. And their advice was never buy something you don't have a space for in your house. And by that, not meaning room to cram it in there.
Right.
But unless you can say, okay, this is exactly where I want this to go, and there's room for it, and I don't have to tear my life apart to put it there, then you can consider buying it. But if you're just buying it with no intent, and by intent, an informed, choice, then you shouldn't buy it. Leave it in the store until you really find a place and a purpose for it. So
yeah, that's
I thought that was great advice.
Yeah, that is. Hey, we got a couple loves here on our post here. Wazir Gul. Wazir has given us some Facebook love. Thank you very much.
Nice.
Yeah, appreciate that. And Lady Luck Lounge is giving us some thumbs up as well. So nice.
Another thing that studies have shown by the American Psychological Association is that clutter wears us out. And it's like you were talking about, all the tabs, and it lowers productivity. And part of the way it lowers productivity is it tires your brain out, because I like to think of our brains and perception like the aperture in a camera, right? And so if the aperture is very small, then what it's looking at is that thing is in crystal clear focus. What's around it will be blurry and it's still there, but it's not really in focus. That's why, if you do portrait photography, you dial the aperture down. And so the object you're photographing is, in focus, and you have a bokeh, it's called a blurred background.
Right.
If you crank that aperture wide open and you're getting a whole bunch of light, which is the information of imagery, everything flattens out to one plane, right? And it's hard to focus on anything because everything is in the same focal plane.
Right.
And that's okay for long shots of scenery or, other things like that, where it's like a big picture thing.
Right.
But if you zoom in, then you'll find that the image is indistinct in that type of wide aperture shot. And our brains are like that. If we dial it in and we block out, if we declutter, if we minimize all the extra stuff around it, we can engage in a really clear, focused way. But when we open that up, our minds, our bodies, our environment becomes overwhelmed and cluttered because everything sort of fades into the same plane. We can't find one thing to focus on. So like you said, our brains jump around and they can't engage deeply in one thing.
Right. No, I can see what you're saying. It's kind of like where, if you're just had all of your inbox open and you've got 187 inbox, emails in your inbox, kind of a thing, and you're not taking the time to focus on this particular one, then all that is all clutter that just kind of draws you in and kind of drains your energy. Whereas if you disregard all the others except for this one that you're reading and focusing to and going to respond to, then you can be very, very clear on terms of, you can give a full and complete answer to that and then move on to the next one, right? So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, that's great. And there's recently probably a lot of boomers in our generation will know this name. Yeah, some younger people as well. Do you know who Marie Kondo is?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, and that whole phenomenon, those of you who may not know, listeners or our viewers, Marie Kondo is a Japanese woman who she works all over the world, but she is an organization, well, a decluttering expert, right? And she wrote a best-selling book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. And in her book, she really explores, decluttering and emotional well-being. So if you're not really into reading psychology journals and studies, pick up Marie Kondo's book and have a look at that. She's funny. She's got a sense of humor. She has. They did TV shows with her. I don't think they air anymore. There, of course, everything is available in the realm of cable TV and other places, but definitely worth looking at. The Sleep Foundation, American nonprofit organization, also said that clutter in your bedroom can very negatively affect the quality of your sleep and the duration of your sleep.
Interesting.
Yeah, a lot of people believe if they can't see it, they're unaware of it, and the study shows that that's simply not true. That's a very narrow. We are perceptive beings. We have a lot of perception around us. We have our five senses. We have where they cross over. We have memory. If we see this big cluttered mess before we go to bed, or worse, if we have to move stuff around and step over stuff to get into bed, it's going to definitely affect our quality of sleep.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
And when you look at a lot of primitive cultures, often empty space is sacred space. And that's because there's a great old Buddhist, and it basically goes, light fills an empty room. And meaning that if you want that, again, that intention of bringing something into focus, you have to make room for it. And so if your room is cluttered with a whole bunch of stuff, light can't get through. And right, in this case, light can be a metaphor for whatever it is you're looking for. And if you're looking for a better relationship, you're looking for better sleep, better health, empty that room out, because so often our rooms and our mind and our lives are filled with so many things that don't really bring us joy and don't add to the quality of our lives. They're things we think we need. Or one of the articles talked about, hoarding and that idea of not being able to let go of things, and how that's become a big problem in developed societies, where people become mentally ill with the inability to throw things out, let go of, like newspapers. And houses have been condemned, and people have even died from hoarding things in their house. And health conditions became so terrible, they, passed away from that, or things have fallen on them. Have you ever seen a hoarder, a place where somebody?
Just on on TV, like there was a show on Netflix or something, a hoarding show that I like. I don't know if I don't think I watched a whole episode, but I watched some of it, and it's just like, oh my goodness, right? And it was just like stuff piled up everywhere, just like one path to kind of walk through between garbage bags and old newspapers and every other thing, kind of a thing. And yeah, so you can see how that would weigh heavily on you, kind of to have just so much stuff around, right? So much, that you have to kind of divide your brain power to all that shit that's in kind of your life, right? So yeah.
Well, and that's what we get tricked into. We assign value to things that we don't actually value, and that goes back to that idea of intent, right? Like, you need to set priorities, and that's one of the, we always like on H3 to talk about actionables, how we can do things. So I have some actionables for us here.
Good.
Coming right up. But
Perfect.
I just wanted to touch on, a Cal Newport wrote a book called Digital Minimalism, and I suggest if you're interested, like you said, Al, if you're fine, your desktop is full of stuff, and I know today I was having problems with my email, and I had a whole bunch of stuff open on my desktop, and for whatever's going on with Google, it crashed my computer, and when it came back up, everything was gone off the desktop,
Hmm.
and I had a heart attack. And the truth is it was all still there,
Yeah.
but just the idea that all of my information was gone,
Yeah.
and I didn't even really know what was missing, right?
Yeah.
But I had an anxiety attack. I was like, ugh, is this backed up? Where'd it go? And check out Digital Minimalism by Carl Newport if you're interested in learning more about how to, skinny up your digital life and really improve the quality of your digital interaction.
Okay.
Seniors. This one kept coming up in the research. The AARP guide, the American Association Retired People. Yeah, sorry. I had it, those things. My tongue was cluttered there for a minute. They actually published a guide on downsizing and decluttering for seniors. And I know when friends of ours, my aunt and uncle, are talking about possibly moving from their farmhouse, which, I mean, their house is not a typical farmhouse, but moving off the farm into the city, into maybe an assisted living or a managed place, just so they have less to worry about and they can focus on the things they want to focus on rather than, is the siding taken care of? Are the gutters clean? All of those things that come with owning property.
Sure.
And they actually said that there are agencies, some of them government supported, some of them private, that will help seniors with decluttering and moving and helping determine really what's the most important things for them to take with them when they downsize.
Yeah. Yeah.
So look into that if you're in that situation. So we were talking about, actionable points, and I think it's really, really good to always have something that you can focus on to make a difference. And the number one recommended way to downsize is set small and specific goals, right? Like, I don't know about you, but if I go in and say, oh, I'm going to clean up the living room, well, I start cleaning up, and then I get, I find a box full of parts or old cables and whatever, and I start getting fascinated on that, or obsessed with that. And then, a day's gone by, Saturday's shot or Sunday, and the living room's still a mess, still full of clutter. So the recommendation is to really choose a manageable area. Say, I'm going to clean out that desk drawer. Now, when you're done, you can move on to the next thing. But if you set that clear goal, it's less likely you're going to get overwhelmed and find yourself at the end of the day with really have accomplished nothing.
Sure. Staying focused on that small task, get that one done. Again, it's like not being distracted with what all of the other 87 things you're going to do later, just on this one task that you're working on right now. Yeah.
Journal of Applied Psychology, it was a great article that I read in there related to this. And it's like, that's the answer to everything in life. Start small, focus on it with everything you have, and get that win, set a very specific goal, get that win, and then move on to the next one. Nice. And pretty soon, these little chunks, these little wins turn into big wins, and it becomes habit forming, right?
Yes.
Rather than the other way, when you start it and then you never get back to it, and it's like, oh, I can never get cleaned up. I guess I'm just a messy person.
Right. Yeah. And you continue to live in the overwhelm and not making any progress. Yeah,
exactly. They use the 4-pile method, and Jeanette actually went over the 3 shoe boxes?
3, yeah.
4, yeah. Well, they recommended the 4-pile method, and this one is, I think, pretty common. So 4 piles: keep, donate, discard, and decide later. And you have to be pretty strict. Donating is a great way to exchange something that you have no real value in or only partial value in to somebody who really needs it. I know when I was really big, when we were in Japan after I got sick, we had both the schools and I was working for the government, and I could afford nice clothes. And so I had some nice bespoke suits, but where they were made for my large frame at that time after I gained all the weight after the coma. And then I started losing weight, of course, and they're ridiculous. I mean, me and you could fit in them. And, the family said, well, why don't you donate them? Because, there's going to be other people out there that may not have been in the situation you were in at the time. Like right now, I couldn't go out and, have a custom suit made for me. Why don't you donate them? Because to somebody, that may be the one thing, they can put on a nice suit and apply for a job or, do that presentation. And that really struck me how, something that really didn't have it had monetary value. The reason I was keeping it is because they were expensive, right? And they were beautiful and the fabric was nice and all. I can come up with 1,000 reasons, but the truth is they had no value to my life now.
Right. Yeah.
But to somebody else,
huge.
Huge.
And changing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that if we think about it that way, donating things becomes an enjoyable process. I like this a lot, but somebody is going to really, really love this.
No kidding. Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you want to be careful. Sometimes if you look around your friends and family, there will be people who genuinely want that. Maybe somebody said, oh, I love that, or it has memory for them. Don't pass all your junk on to other people, but be a little bit creative. Right?
Makes sense.
So also, sorry?
I just said be focused on how, especially in terms of if you're giving it to somebody, how it would be of value to that person in their life and their situation, right? Yeah.
Great advice. Absolutely excellent.
Hey, we're over time. Are you on the wrapper upper in there, Scott?
I'm on the wrap up. I just have 2 more.
Okay.
It says tackle sentimental items last. Okay. Start with non-sentimental sentimental items like kitchenware, clothes you can't wear, stuff like that. Save emotional items like grandma's sewing bag for last. So build up momentum, build some of that elasticity in your behavior where you're not panicked about giving things away and you're able to assign genuine value to the things you keep. Then tackle those sentimental momentums, because often we feel guilty. And the trick, Marie Kondo mentions this, is think about if the person that gave it to you or that you're using to remember it, would they really want you to keep that just because it belonged to them, even though it's, lowering the quality of your life? Absolutely not. No. Absolutely not. No. So
cool.
And then the last one, incorporate regular maintenance. That's tied in with those, making those small choices. Do it every day. Don't, spring cleaning. We used to do that on the farm, right? Which meant everything just basically piled up until spring. And then and back in the old days when, weather and all those things, it was a necessity. But nowadays we can do this process on an ongoing basis, and that'll really help. Last point, and where we want to end, is that focus, mindfulness, and attention. And every time you and I talk about health and well-being, it's funny how many times that intention and focus really come up as the key to personal health and wellness.
Definitely so. Yeah, very much so. Cool. Well, Scott, take us home, brother.
From my very good friend, Alan Friesen, the acapellist, who is very good at knowing that he has to try and refocus and works on that every day. I hope to get that in my soul, because I see him working with it, and he does an amazing job of trying, and that's all we can do. And myself, Scott Sweetman, thank you so much for joining us tonight in H3, and we will see you next week right here, same place, same time.
Get a Matson.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.